lot of big news. Brandon Ingram was just traded, and Jimmy Butler was also traded today. So, the trade deadline is not over yet. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. it ends. So tomorrow by 3 p.m., we may even see some more crazy trades. So first, let's talk about the Jimmy Butler trade, because obviously that is big time news. So Jimmy Butler was traded to the Warriors. That's crazy. Now, if you watched my page, you know that I was saying I feel like Kevin Durant's going to go to the Warriors. And I think Brian Windhorst said this on ESPN, earlier today when the Jimmy Butler trade happened. Don't quote me on this, and I'm pretty sure it was him. But he said that there was basically a way, and it was kind of going to be a 3-team trade, but it was going to be Jimmy to the Suns and Durant to the Warriors. But reportedly, Durant did not want to go back to the Warriors, and so that deal was basically, dead. They stopped that deal from happening. And so my instincts were kind of right. KD to the Warriors was somewhat happening. But regardless, it's actually Jimmy Butler to the Warriors. And what an amazing trade for the Warriors. Because if you don't know what the deal was, it was Jimmy to the Warriors. It was actually a 5-team deal. And Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson are going to Miami. Actually, it ends up being a 4-team deal because the Raptors were the fifth team, and they pulled out because they were supposed to take Kyle Anderson. But regardless, Kyle Anderson and Andrew Wiggins and PJ Tucker go to Miami. And then Dennis Schroeder goes to Utah. And then Lindy Waters and Josh Richardson go to the Pistons. And then Jimmy Butler goes to the Warriors. So that is the deal. That is an amazing deal for the Warriors. And I've discussed the Warriors potentially getting Jimmy Butler on this page a few times. The Jimmy Butler saga has been going on for a while. So I've talked about him being traded a bunch of times. And I always had the same conclusion that Jimmy on the Warriors would be great. We know who Jimmy is in the playoffs, what he brings, all that stuff. And so I always thought Jimmy would be a good addition. To me, it just always depended on what they had to give up. I will say one of my more recent opinions on it, I was like, do you want to trade Andrew Wiggins? Only because he was having such a good season. And so I was like, do you trade Andrew Wiggins? It was a tough decision. And Andrew Wiggins, again, was having an incredible season. So Miami, got a good player with Wiggins. And his contract is pretty, team friendly. I believe he's only making $27 a year. So it's not that bad. So that was the only question mark I had. But the Warriors didn't have to give up any of their young guys. Brandon Podziemski's still on the team. Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, didn't have to trade any of them. GP2, Kevon Looney, all of them are still on the team. And obviously Draymond and Steph. Buddy Hield, still on the team. They literally didn't have to give up any of their key veterans, their, I guess you could say, core pieces in terms of Looney and GP2, and they're also veterans. And they didn't have to give up any of the young guys. You can't, and they get Jimmy Butler. How is that not a win of a trade? I'm not saying people are saying it isn't. I'm sure some people don't like the trade. You do that deal every day of the week. That is a crazy good trade for the Warriors. For Miami, obviously, they were probably hoping for more from Jimmy, but obviously the way that the Jimmy Butler saga went, they were not going to get as much as they had hoped, maybe 2 months ago, right? So they actually ended up doing pretty good because, again, Wiggins is a good player, and Wiggins actually fits their timeline in terms of Hero and Bam. It's not that I think that they're a championship contender now, but they obviously, did the best they could, because the Phoenix thing was not happening because Bradley Beal was not waiving his no trade clause. There was no way. So, and Miami didn't want Bradley Beal's contract. So regardless, that wasn't going to happen. The Phoenix Suns are the big loser in this, if there is any, because not only did they not get Jimmy Butler, but one of their conference rivals, in the Western Conference, literally took Jimmy Butler from them, and they've made no moves. And they don't really have any assets to make moves. They're kind of stuck. So the Phoenix Suns are the quote-unquote loser in this, if there is any, because unless the Phoenix Suns just turn this around and end up being, the champions this year, they didn't get to do anything that they planned on doing. Shout out to the Warriors. What a trade. The Warriors are going to be a team you do not want to play in the playoffs. Now, obviously, they have to get there. They have to start winning more games because right now they are in 10th place, I believe. So, you got to get in first, of course. But once they get there, you do not want to play them. Play off Jimmy. Play off Steph Curry. Play off Draymond Green. That's a scary combo. You don't want that. So shout out to the Warriors. I think they easily won this trade. Easily. Because even if it doesn't work out, let's say with Jimmy, not everybody, but I'll say a lot of people didn't think that the Warriors were going to win the championship this year. A lot of people said they need to make a trade, they need to, do something. And so if everyone concluded and their opinion was that the Warriors were not going to win, then why, there's no loss in making this trade, right? If they weren't going to win anyway by anyone's standards, at least they get to try and have another chance with someone who we know shows up in the playoffs. So I don't see how this is a win-win for the Warriors either way, based on everyone else's opinion, right? So shout out to the Warriors. And then we'll go to Brandon Ingram. He was just traded a few minutes ago I'm about to say the Pelicans, to the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors are trading Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick for Brandon Ingram. Someone said Wiggins is going to fit well in Miami. Yeah, I think so too. I think Wiggins actually fits very nicely there. Again, does that make them a championship contender? Not necessarily, no, right? But they can start adding players and, building pieces and stuff like that. Really it was to get Jimmy out of Miami because according to all the reports, it's been very disruptive. So besides Jimmy, the player he is, if his antics were as disruptive as they were being reported, it's addition by subtraction in that sense. Not from his play standpoint, obviously. We know Jimmy Butler is top tier in the playoffs and stuff like that, right? But addition by subtraction, you get the, locker room noise, the issues gone. So that is definitely good for Miami in that sense. But back to Brandon Ingram. So, and I actually discussed this yesterday in my live stream. Someone had said, what about Zion? And I said, well, you don't trade Zion unless you trade Brandon Ingram first and see what you get for him. There's no reason to rush to trade Zion before you know what Brandon Ingram is worth on the market. And also, I don't think Zion's value is going to change much between now and the summer. There's no reason to rush that, right? And so, Brandon Ingram's value apparently is Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first and a second. Now, for the Toronto Raptors, I am kind of confused by this deal for them. They were trying to move Bruce Brown. They were clear on that they were moving Bruce Brown. And they obviously moved Kelly Olynyk in the deal too. So it's not that they lost, it's not they lost Scotty Barnes or anything like that. It's not like they lost franchise-changing players for their team currently. But at the same time, does Brandon Ingram fit with Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett? Because RJ Barrett's a wing, Brandon Ingram's a wing, and although Scotty Barnes can pretty much do everything, rebound, pass the ball, and score, although the scoring is the funniest thing, the thing that he needs to work on the most is scoring more. It's kind of crazy, but Scotty Barnes is also technically kind of a wing. So you have 3 starting caliber wings on your team. And I guess you could move Barrett to the 2 because when he was on the Knicks, I think he played the 2 sometimes. But the point is, it's a little bit of redundancy in a way. So I'm a little confused by that. But again, because they didn't have to give up anybody who was, what they determined as part of their future and stuff like that, I guess, again, you just take a chance because Brandon Ingram is an all-star caliber player. So they didn't do anything wrong. I was just I don't know if that's, I don't know if it makes the most sense, but at the same time, I guess it's them just kind of taking a chance. Like, why not? Because they needed to move, or they wanted to move Bruce Brown anyway. So I say it's a win for the Raptors if it works out for them. And then for the Pelicans, we knew for a while now that they were going to move Brandon Ingram. And is this the best package they could get back for Brandon Ingram? I don't know, because I don't know what Brandon Ingram's market value was. Like, I feel like his market value was very confusing because we haven't seen him in a while. And like, when we did see him, for example, in the playoffs a couple of years ago without Zion, he was cooking the Suns. I believe it was the Suns, right? He was cooking, going crazy. And then obviously he's been hurt a lot since. And so it's really hard to determine what his value is. Like, he's an all-star level player in the terms of like, he could be an all-star because he has been one, right? He's been an all-star. I'm pretty positive. But it's like, I don't know if the market values him that way. So it's really hard to determine what he actually is worth on the market, especially given the crazy trades that we saw, like Luka. So like, you don't know what anybody's worth anymore at this point. And so with that being said, I have been a big fan of Bruce Brown for a while. If you watch this page, you know I said Denver should have never let him go. Now, someone had pointed out to me one time that when I was mentioning this, because every time I talk about Bruce Brown, I mention that. And someone had pointed out to me that Denver could only offer him a certain amount, and they did, and that's why he left. I had for some reason always thought that they didn't offer him as much as they could. I don't know why, but I just I just always thought that. Like, that's the story I remember hearing. So shout out to that person for pointing that out. So if that is the case, obviously Denver did all they could, but he left. Regardless, losing Bruce Brown was, you know, the worst thing for Denver because it just trickled down into more issues, right? So like, obviously Denver has not won since, and they're trying to figure it out. But I'm a big fan of Bruce Brown. I like what he does. I think he's very, very good. He does a lot of good things well. And then you got Kelly Olynyk because the Pelicans needed another center. And so you still have Trey Murphy, you still have Herb Jones, you still have Jose Alvarado. Yves Missi has been like really, really good for them. And so I guess and then you obviously have Zion. So I guess at this point, you are going to evaluate how the team plays with Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, with Zion there as well, and then maybe that team could like figure it out. Bruce Brown is a free agent though, so like, are you re-signing him? Do you expect him to re-sign? Did you just do this deal to get the picks for Brandon Ingram, and then when Bruce Brown is a free agent, you just say goodbye if he doesn't want to stay? I don't know exactly what their plan is yet, but I definitely do think that they have to make a move for Brandon Ingram. And if Bruce Brown is okay with staying, I would definitely, you know, take him back at the end of the year because he's a very good player. It's just a matter of what they want to do. And then it's kind of like, if they re-sign Bruce Brown, you're basically saying to Zion, which obviously we knew that he was supposed to be their franchise player, their guy who brings them a championship and stuff like that, right? So that's not breaking news. But there is no longer a all-star caliber forward next to him in Brandon Ingram, right? Lots of good players, talented players, defensive players, you know, three-point shooters. You still have CJ McCollum too, right? So you still got lots of good players. So basically you're saying to Zion, you are the clear-cut 25 to 30 point per game scorer. Like, Brandon Ingram's not here anymore. You're going to get even more shots. We will supply you with, you know, this is my thinking. We will supply you with all the players we can around you who can defend, shoot, pass the ball, rebound, do all these things. I may have repeated a couple things twice in there, but do all those things. And then you just have to be dominant in your own way. And that is how we will try to get it done. So that is my thought process on what the Pelicans are looking at right now. And then again, we'll see what happens with Bruce Brown this summer. And if they are going to look to pair Zion with another, you know, all-star caliber player when the summer rolls around. So that is my take. Someone said before the Luka trade, they probably could have gotten two. Yeah, well, I think the Luka thing is so like out there in craziness that like I do think it kind of devalued some of these trades, but at the same time I do also think it was so abnormal that it didn't devalue it as much as if it was like a more realistic trade in our opinion. They think it's realistic, that's their opinion, whatever. But most of us feel like it was not enough back for Luka. And so with that being said, like because it was so abnormal, I don't think it devalued it the way some other trades could have, done that. But I do think it actually did devalue some of these trades as well. So I do kind of agree with that sentiment. Someone said, do you think KD gets traded? Not anymore. Not anymore. He could have went to the Warriors, but he apparently rejected that. So it definitely is not going to get traded now because the Suns have no moves. They can't do anything, really, because Bradley Beal's not waiving his no trade clause. And Jimmy's off the market. Brandon Ingram's gone. De'Aaron Fox, they weren't getting him, but he's gone. Luka, nobody thought he was going anywhere, but he's gone, right? So, like, they are trying to win a championship. That's what the Suns' plans are. So, like, there's nobody on the market now that they can definitely trade for Kevin Durant, who is somewhat similar in value at all. So I don't think so at all. Maybe in the summer we'll revisit this conversation, but for now, no. Yeah, KD waiting until the summer. Yeah, basically I think we'll see how this year plays out. And then in the summer, we may hear KD trade rumors again. But until then, it's KD and the Suns. So thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this live. And let's see what happens tomorrow before trade deadline closes because we could still see a few more moves. So thank you guys.